The tray didn't fall. It exploded. Crystal glasses burst across the obsidian floor like tiny grenades. The sound was wrong, too sharp, too violent for something so expensive and fragile. People screamed. Security radios crackled alive. And somewhere far down the marble corridor, an ambulance siren started wailing like it already knew someone's career or life had just ended. I stayed on my knees, champagne soaking into my sleeves. Heart calm, mind razor sharp. Because I finally knew two things. Tonight had turned into a crime scene. And I was exactly where I needed to be. Even if I was dressed like catering staff. Even if a billionaire was pointing at me like I was a stain he couldn't wipe off reality. I lowered my eyes. Not in submission. In calculation. Because invisibility is the most underestimated weapon in existence. And tonight, I plan to use it like a scalpel. Let me take you back. Not to the beginning. To the moment I first felt something was wrong. The air inside the Aurora Clinical Research Gala smelled like money and fear. Money smells sweet. Fear smells metallic. Together, they smell like corruption. I smoothed down my graphite black dress, elegant, simple, strategically forgettable. The kind of dress that says, I belong here. I just don't need you to know why. I was there for my niece. The first surgeon our entire bloodline had ever produced. Our family history was warehouse workers, bus drivers, receptionists, and one traveling spiritual advisor who absolutely performed weddings without checking paperwork. But tonight we had brilliance. And I was dangerously proud. I was still emotional when the event logistics manager slammed an apron into my chest. You're late. Premium service staff. Kitchen. Move. I opened my mouth. Then I heard him. That voice. Cold. Polished. Weaponized by generational wealth. If the doctor's extended relatives look like support staff, keep them away from investors. I didn't donate to network with maintenance energy. Something ancient inside me went very still. I didn't argue. I tied the apron. Because dignity doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it gathers receipts. Inside the main hall, chandeliers hung like frozen lightning. Investors laughed like hyenas wearing tuxedos. Medical graduates looked like they were mentally calculating student debt versus emotional stability. A pianist was playing like the rent was overdue and hope was optional. I picked up a tray and became invisible. Here's the truth nobody tells you. Powerful people stop filtering themselves around people they think don't matter. And they never notice who is listening. I floated through conversations, pouring drinks, collecting secrets. Across the room, I saw my niece, Dr. Ellen Mara, smiling beside her partner, eyes scanning exits like she was already learning survival medicine. She saw me. Started to wave. I gave her the look. The one that means, do not react. Do not speak. Something dangerous is about to happen and I need you alive for it. She lowered her hand immediately. Good. That girl grew up in my house. She knows tone changes before storms arrive. Then I met the donors. Victor Cade, biotech empire architect. Entire oncology research tower named after him. Eyes like frozen lakes. Smile like expired medication. His son Rowan wore a suit that probably had its own financial advisor. He snapped fingers at staff. Didn't say thank you. Called someone background labor noise. I nearly laughed out loud. Instead, I memorized his face. Because men like that always think they are permanent. And nothing in this universe is permanent. Except consequences. Then the first crack appeared. A young server dropped a tray. Rowan flinched like empathy physically hurt him. Do they recruit people who failed basic coordination now? The girl looked like she wanted to dissolve into air molecules. I crouched beside her. Whispered. If dropping things was illegal, surgeons would be serving life sentences. She laughed. Tiny. Real. And in that moment, I knew. She would talk if she ever needed to. Kindness is leverage nobody teaches in business school. Then the alarm sounded. Research wing lockdown. Security moving fast. Investors confused. And Victor Cade. Smiling. That smile made my stomach go cold. Because innocent men panic. Guilty men relax when chaos looks accidental. I drifted closer to two executives whispering. Mortality curves adjusted. If oversight sees full fatality clusters, approval is dead. My brain went silent. That dangerous, focused silence. The one that means something catastrophic just became inevitable. Then the second twist arrived wearing discount sneakers. The crying server girl sat in a side corridor, studying advanced surgical licensing material. Not staff. Future surgeon. Blocked candidate. Someone quietly erased. I sat beside her. Long night? She said. Long life. I liked her immediately. Then my niece cornered me in a supply hallway. Aunt, why are you disguised as catering staff? Because evil confesses to furniture. She stared at me, then said, if you get arrested, I'm telling Grandma you started it. Fair. Then the keynote guest arrived. Global Clinical Oversight Commissioner. Old ally. Old battlefield partner, professionally speaking. He walked past investors. Past trustees. Past cameras. Straight to me. Why are you wearing catering uniform? Silence fell like gravity. I untied the apron slowly. Folded it neatly. Placed it down. Turned. Good evening. I'm Director Celine Arctis, International Medical Ethics Command. And in that moment, the entire room understood. The night was over. They just didn't know it yet. And then, everything started collapsing. The moment I said my name, the room didn't go quiet. It went hollow. Like every laugh, every clink of glass, every polished sentence had been sucked out through an invisible drain. The chandeliers still glittered. The string quartet still breathed. But the people? They froze the way prey freezes when it realizes the shadow above it isn't a cloud. Victor Cade's smile didn't vanish. Not immediately. It twitched. Like a man trying to remember whether he'd locked his front door while watching flames crawl up his curtains. Rowan, his son, looked at me the way spoiled men look at a parking ticket, offended that consequences exist at all. The commissioner, my old ally, stood beside me, hands loosely folded, calm as a priest at a funeral. Which was fitting, because reputations were about to die tonight. He cleared his throat and said, gently, recording is active. All security systems are now under federal oversight. The word recording hit the donors like cold water. Several faces changed color. Not the honest kind of pale. The guilty kind. The kind that comes when you realize your private sins have just been invited onto the main stage. Someone, somewhere, let out a tiny, strangled laugh. It sounded like panic trying to dress itself as humor and failing miserably. I looked toward the sound. A trustee in an expensive tuxedo was smiling too hard, teeth flashing, eyes wet. He reminded me of a man I once saw at a funeral who kept nodding like the casket was giving a motivational speech. Victor lifted his glass like he was toasting me. Director Arctis. This is unexpected. His tone was smooth, but his pupils were sharp. A predator recalculating. I smiled sweetly. The kind of smile women learn when they've had to disarm men who mistake politeness for weakness. Life is full of surprises, I said. Some are balloons. Some are subpoenas. A few nervous chuckles happened. Not because it was funny. Because wealthy people laugh when they're terrified, as if laughter might bribe reality. I turned slightly so my voice carried without me having to raise it. I'm going to ask for something very simple, I said. And your response will decide whether this evening becomes an investigation or a catastrophe. I paused, letting them hang in that word, catastrophe. It's amazing what fear does. Fear makes people listen. Fear makes people honest. Fear makes people stupid. And tonight, I needed all three. Where is Dr. Halden Rook? A hush. Eyes flickered toward the side entrance like a shared guilty reflex. Victor's smile returned, smaller now, the way a man smiles at a dentist. Pretending he's fine while bracing for pain. Dr. Rook is indisposed, he said. Of course. Indisposed, in rich people language, could mean anything from in a board meeting to in a panic room. The commissioner's gaze stayed on Victor. Calm. Heavy. Then we'll wait, he said, until he is composed. I almost laughed. My friend always had a way of turning polite language into a threat. I started walking. Slowly. Not toward the stage. Not toward Victor. Toward the servers. Toward the edges. Toward the places people didn't pay attention to. When you're powerful, you don't look at the margins. You assume the margins don't bite. But margins are where the truth sits with its coat on, waiting to leave. I passed by the young woman in discount sneakers, the server everyone thought was just another invisible body carrying someone else's luxury. She was standing near the wall now, tray balanced, posture stiff, eyes bright with contained rage. I caught her gaze. A question sat in it. Is this real? I gave her the smallest nod. Yes, it was real. And I was about to drag the entire room into it. Victor's son Rowan stepped into my path. You can't just, he started, voice thick with outrage, as if I'd interrupted his birthright. I leaned in a fraction, still smiling. Careful, I whispered, too softly for anyone but him. Your father paid for this building, not for your mouth. His face reddened. He opened his mouth again, and I swear I saw the exact moment he realized I wanted him to speak. Wanted him to overreach. Wanted him to show the room exactly who he was when he thought no one could punish him. He shut it. Good boy. I continued walking. The banquet hall was arranged like theater. Stage at the front. Cameras poised. Donor tables lined like thrones. And in the middle, medical students and graduates sitting upright with polite smiles, like porcelain dolls forced to attend their own auction. My niece, Ellen, sat with her partner near the center. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her eyes had gone sharp, the way they do when she's in an operating room and someone's life depends on precision. When she caught my gaze, her jaw tightened. She knew something. Not all of it, but enough to... If anyone offers you dessert, decline. Tonight's going to be bitter. Her partner blinked. Ellen's mouth twitched like she wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Good. That was the exact emotional state required for survival. I returned to the center of the room, where Victor could see me clearly. I didn't give him the satisfaction of nervousness. I gave him composure. That was the first knife. Then I spoke again. Earlier tonight, I said, I heard a conversation about adjusted mortality curves. People shifted. Then I heard another conversation about fatality clusters being buried. More shifting. Then I watched an entire security team sprint toward a research wing lockdown, while the man who funds that wing smiled. Victor's glass lowered a little. His smile had died completely now. Good. The mask was cracking. I kept going. Some of you came here expecting to network, I said. Some of you came here expecting applause. My eyes moved across the tables, catching faces like a net. But one of you came here expecting something else. I paused. Silence. Silence is a currency. It's also a confession. The room was so quiet I could hear the violinist's fingers tremble against his strings. Victor spoke, carefully. Director Arctis, this is theater. He spread his hands. A man pretending openness. A man trained in persuasion. Surely you understand how rumors work. I tilted my head. Rumors, I said, don't come with encrypted spreadsheets. The commissioner pulled a slim device from his pocket and held it up, calm as a man holding a match in a dry forest. I have the initial data dump, he said. Timestamped. Verified. Cross-referenced. Backed up in multiple jurisdictions. Jurisdictions. That word makes criminals sweat. Victor's jaw flexed. Rowan swallowed. A trusty 2 tables over picked up his napkin and wiped his face like his skin had suddenly become illegal. Then a woman stood. She had the posture of money and the voice of entitlement. I don't see what this has to do with a celebration, she said sharply. Her earrings were diamonds. Her eyes were knives. I looked at her and smiled politely. Ma'am, I said, if you don't see how ethics relates to medicine, please don't ever be alone with a scalpel. A few shocked laughs escaped. Even Ellen's partner snorted, then looked guilty about it. The woman's lips tightened. But she sat. Because humor is another weapon. It slices pride right down the middle and makes everyone else notice it bleeding. Victor took a step closer, keeping his voice low. What do you want? He asked. There it was. Not what's true. Not what happened. Not who died. Just what do you want? Because men like Victor don't think in morality. They think in transactions. I leaned in slightly. I want the truth, I said. And I want it out loud. Victor's eyes narrowed. I can't give you what you don't have the authority to demand. I smiled wider. Oh, I have the authority, I said softly. You just haven't accepted it yet. Then I lifted my chin and addressed the room again. We're going to do something unusual, I said. We're going to let the people you ignore speak first. My gaze landed on the young woman in sneakers. Come here, I said. She froze. Fear flashed across her face. Not fear of me. Fear of what happens when you stop being invisible. I knew that fear intimately. I softened my tone. Please, I said, before someone convinces you imagined what you saw. She swallowed. Then she stepped forward. The tray in her hands trembled, and the entire room watched her as if she'd suddenly transformed from furniture into fire. What's your name? I asked gently. She hesitated, then lifted her chin. Unia, she said. Of course I'd change it in my head later. Of course the real name didn't matter right now. What mattered was voice. And Unia, I said, you're not staff, are you? Her throat bobbed. No, she said. I'm a candidate. A ripple through the room. Candidate for what? Residency placement, she said. Her voice grew steadier. Anger is stabilizing. I was supposed to be in the top group. Victor's son scoffed. I don't know who you think you are. I lifted one hand. He stopped. Not because I demanded it. Because the commissioner's security detail shifted subtly, and suddenly Rowan remembered his mortality. Unia continued. I had the scores, she said. The recommendations. The hours. She looked at Victor. And then I got removed. Gasps. Someone dropped a fork. Tiny metal clink, loud as a gunshot in the silence. How were you removed? I asked. Unia's eyes glistened. She blinked hard. Quietly, she said. I was told I wasn't the right fit. Fit. That word. That ugly little word used to hide discrimination, greed, and donor politics under a polite blanket. Unia's voice shook. Then I was offered a support role for gala events, she said bitterly. So I could still be close to medicine. Her laugh was sharp. It didn't sound like humor. It sounded like pain dressed up as defiance. Ellen's hands clenched on her lap. I saw it. She was connecting dots fast. A doctor's brain, always running differential diagnoses. And the diagnosis forming in her mind was monstrous. Victor spoke loudly now, trying to seize the narrative. This is emotional manipulation, he said. We're here to celebrate medicine, not what? I interrupted. I let my tone go colder. Not the people who get sacrificed to keep your funding streams clean? Victor's nostrils flared. His facade was slipping. Good. Unia, I said, keeping my voice gentle again. Did you see anything tonight? Anything you weren't supposed to see? Her face changed. Like a shadow moving across a window. Yes, she whispered. The room leaned forward. Even the donors. Even the people who wished she didn't exist. Curiosity is a disease too. Unia swallowed. I saw them move someone, she said. My heart slowed. Where? I asked. From the research wing, she said, voice trembling. Down the service corridor. Behind the linen carts. A hush fell so heavy it felt like pressure on my ribs. I asked carefully, was the person alive? Unia's eyes filled. She stared at the floor. Then she shook her head once. Slowly. No. A sound left someone's throat, half sob, half gasp. Ellen's face went white. Her partner reached for her hand. Victor Cade didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. And that told me exactly what I needed to know. Because the most horrifying thing in the world is not cruelty. It's comfort inside cruelty. I exhaled, slow. Then I looked at the commissioner. Activate containment protocol, I said. He nodded. And within seconds, doors sealed. Security took positions. Phones stopped working. Wi-Fi died. A chorus of angry murmurs rose like insects. Someone shouted, "You can't do this." I smiled calmly. "Oh," I said. "I can." Then I turned back to Victor. "Now," I said softly, "we find out who you buried. Victor's voice was low, almost intimate. "You're making a mistake," he said. I leaned in, close enough that only he could hear me. "No," I whispered. "I'm correcting one." And then the man who was indisposed finally walked in. Dr. Halden Rook. Respected mentor. Beloved by the institution. The kind of man who knew how to smile while holding a knife behind his back. Ellen's mentor. Her hero. He stepped into the light, looking composed, almost serene. Like a man arriving at a lecture. Not a man arriving at the scene of his own exposure. He looked straight at Ellen first. And something flickered in his eyes. Not guilt. Not remorse. Possession. Then he looked at me. And smiled. That smile wasn't fear. It was recognition. As if he'd been waiting for me. As if tonight wasn't an accident. As if tonight was a test. Dr. Halden Rook didn't walk into the gala like a man being summoned to account for something. He walked in like a man arriving to receive applause. His suit was pressed. His hair was perfect. His smile was perfectly measured, not warm, not cold, just practiced. The kind of smile you put on when you've spent a lifetime being called brilliant, ethical, indispensable. He stopped beside Victor Cade, and the two of them stood close enough to look like allies. Close enough to look like co-owners of something that shouldn't be owned. The room's attention snapped to him like a compass needle finding north. Because that's what institutions do. They worship whoever holds the scalpel. Ellen's breath caught. I saw it happen in slow motion, the way her shoulders lifted, then stiffened. Her mouth parted like she wanted to say his name, but her body stopped her. The first time your hero shows up at the crime scene, your brain refuses to accept the evidence. Her partner squeezed her hand. She didn't squeeze back. Her fingers had turned into stone. I felt a cold, old tenderness in my chest. I wanted to protect her. But some lessons don't come gently. Some lessons come like a car crash. And Ellen was about to learn one of the worst. Halden's eyes finally landed on me. "Director Arctis," he said smoothly. "What an unusual way to celebrate our graduates." His voice was velvet. It made you want to trust him, even if you didn't. That's what made him dangerous. I kept my smile polite. "You're late," I said. "I was in the research wing," he replied without missing a beat. "We had a complication." My stomach didn't drop. It hardened. A complication. Like they'd burned a souffle. Not like someone had died behind linen carts. I glanced toward Unia, the candidate in sneakers. She had backed up against the wall. Her face had gone tight, terrified. Not because she was afraid of being wrong. Because she was afraid of being right. Halden's gaze slid to her. Just for a second. And in that second I saw it. Not anger. Not surprise. Control. The way a man looks at a chess piece that's moved when it wasn't supposed to. Ellen saw it too. I watched her eyes narrow. She didn't know what she was seeing yet. But her body recognized the shift. The commissioner's voice cut through the air, calm as ice. "Dr. Rook, we've received information regarding concealed mortality data in your trials." Halden didn't flinch. "Mortality exists in medicine," he said gently, as if speaking to a child. "You know that." "Mortality exists," I said, "but you were hiding it." Halden sighed. An elegant little sigh, like he was tired of being inconvenienced by other people's standards. "Director," he said, "this is not the time or place." I laughed. Not loudly. Just enough to be heard. "Oh, it's exactly the time," I said. "The place is perfect too. You love an audience." Some gasps. Some nervous chuckles. Even fear can't stop people enjoying a good insult. Halden's smile tightened slightly. Victor leaned closer to him, murmuring something I couldn't hear. Halden nodded once. Then he looked at me again. "Would you like to step into a private room?" he asked. A private room. Of course. Because truth dies easiest in private. I smiled brighter. "No," I said. "I'm not allergic to witnesses." Halden clasped his hands. "My work has saved lives," he said, voice rising just enough to carry. "The Aurora Academy exists because people like Victor believe in progress." A murmur of agreement from donors, the ones who always confuse funding with morality. Halden continued, "Every clinical trial carries risk. We can't advance medicine by being afraid of outcomes. I let him speak. Because liars love an uninterrupted stage. Then I said, softly, Unia saw a body. The word body landed like a brick. Somewhere a woman made a sound that might have been a sob. Halden's face didn't change. But his eyes shifted. A fraction. The smallest crack. Enough. He turned toward Unia, voice gentle. Miss. Unia swallowed. I didn't, she started. Halden cut in smoothly, like a surgeon cutting a thread. High-stress environments produce misunderstandings, he said to the room. Service corridors are crowded. Linen carts block visibility. People imagine things. He looked at Unia kindly. Are you sure you saw what you think you saw? His tone wasn't aggressive. That's what made it terrifying. Because coercion doesn't always scream. Sometimes it smiles and offers you a way out. Unia's lips trembled. I watched her eyes dart to the sealed doors. To security. To the commissioner. To me. She looked like a trapped animal weighing whether truth was worth the pain. Ellen's voice cut through the silence, quiet but sharp. She said she saw a body. All heads turned. Ellen stood. Slowly. Like her bones were heavy. Halden's face softened instantly. Ellen, he said warmly. Sit down. This doesn't involve you. The room visibly relaxed at the sound of his tenderness. A mentor addressing his prized student. A noble man concerned for her. Except I'd seen the flicker earlier. Possession. Control. Ellen didn't sit. She took one step forward. It does involve me, she said, voice trembling, then steadying. Because I trained under you. You could hear the heartbreak inside that sentence. Halden's smile remained. But his eyes cooled. Ellen, he said, you're exhausted. You've been through an intense program. Don't let emotional stress cloud your judgment. My hands curled into fists at my sides. There it was. The quiet weapon. Gaslighting disguised as care. I watched Ellen's face. Watched the moment her pride wavered. Because mentors don't just teach you medicine. They teach you how to see yourself. And when someone who shaped you tells you you're confused, your brain wants to obey. Unia's voice cracked, sudden and raw. I'm not confused. Everyone snapped toward her. Unia stepped forward, shaking. I saw them, she said, voice rising. 2 men in security jackets. They moved him like he was luggage. Her eyes filled with tears. And he didn't move. He didn't breathe. His arm was hanging. His fingers she broke off, swallowing a sob. The room held its breath. Halden tilted his head slightly. The expression of a man watching a child have a tantrum. Sweetheart, he said gently, you're distressed. You're projecting. I felt a surge of heat. I stepped forward, voice calm. Dr. Rook, I said, I'm going to ask you a direct question. He looked at me, still smiling. Did someone die in your research wing tonight? A long pause. Halden's smile didn't fade, but his voice dropped. Director, he said, people die every day. My blood turned cold. That wasn't a denial. That was philosophy used as a shield. The kind of answer people give when they're guilty and brilliant enough to hide it in language. The commissioner spoke. Dr. Rook, we have documents suggesting mortality data was edited. Halden nodded once, slow. As part of statistical processing, he said. I glanced at Victor. Victor's jaw was tight now. His eyes darted. He was nervous. Not because of ethics. Because he was afraid Halden would throw him under the bus. And the way Victor watched Halden told me something I hadn't considered. Victor might be the money, but Halden was the mind. The mastermind always looks calmer than the financier. Ellen's voice was barely a whisper. Dr. Rook, did you remove candidates from placement lists? Halden's gaze softened again. Ellen, he said, placements are complicated. Fit matters. Donor expectations matter. Institutional image matters. Unia flinched at the word fit. Ellen's face twisted. Donor expectations, she repeated, like the phrase tasted rotten. Halden shrugged lightly. You don't understand the politics yet, he said. You're talented. You'll learn. One day you'll see that idealism is lovely, but reality pays the salaries. I saw Ellen's eyes glisten. Not because she was weak. Because she was grieving. She was losing the version of him she'd carried for years. And grief feels like betrayal. I stepped closer to her, just enough that my body shielded her from his gaze. Reality also buries bodies, I said. Halden's eyes flicked to mine. For the first time, something like irritation flashed. There it is. The man beneath the saint. Then the third twist arrived. Not in the form of words. In the form of a sound. A faint chime from somewhere under the stage. A muffled vibration. Ellen's head snapped toward it, sharp as a hunting dog. "What is that?" she murmured. My stomach tightened. Because I recognized that sound. A phone. Not any phone. A hidden phone on silent mode. And it was vibrating beneath the stage. Someone was recording. Not the commissioner. Someone else. Someone who didn't want this only in government hands. Someone who wanted control of the footage. And that meant two things. There was a bigger game happening than I thought. And someone in this room was playing it. Halden's eyes moved toward the stage too. Just briefly. But enough. Enough for me to see. He knew. He knew that phone was there. That meant he had planned for tonight. Or planned for something like it. He took one slow breath. Then he smiled at the room again. "Director Arctis," he said softly, "you're making a spectacle." I smiled back. "Doctor," I said, "you've made a cemetery." The room shuddered. Someone whispered a prayer. Someone else laughed nervously like their body didn't know what else to do. Victor suddenly spoke, sharp and angry. "This is done," he snapped. "You can't hold us here." The commissioner lifted his device slightly. "Yes," he said calmly, "I can." Victor's face contorted with rage. And that rage made him reckless. "Fine," Victor spat. "If you want the truth, ask her." He pointed. Not at me. Not at Halden. At Ellen. Every head turned toward her like a spotlight. Ellen froze. My stomach dropped for the first time that night. Because Victor's gesture wasn't random. It was targeted. Like he knew something about Ellen. Like he was about to use her as a shield. Or as a bomb. Ellen whispered, confused, horrified. "Me?" Victor's lips curled. "Yes," he said. "Ask your darling mentor what he made you sign." Ellen's face drained of color. Her eyes widened. She looked at Halden. And Halden's smile finally faltered. Just a fraction. Just enough. A crack in the mask. Ellen's voice came out like a child's. I didn't sign anything." Victor laughed, low, ugly. "Oh, you did," he said. "You just didn't read what it was." Ellen's hand flew to her mouth. Her partner stood abruptly, shaking his head. "What is he talking about?" he demanded. Halden's voice was soft. Too soft. "Ellen," he said, "stay calm." And I knew, in that instant, the truth was about to rip her apart. Because she didn't need to have been evil to have been used. She only needed to have been trusting. I stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "Ellen," I said gently, "think. Any forms. Any training documents. Any routine paperwork." Ellen's eyes went distant. Searching. Then her face twisted in slow horror. She whispered, "The consent packet." Her knees looked like they might buckle. "I signed a packet," she murmured. "They said it was standard, for research exposure, for—" Halden's face hardened. "Ellen," he warned softly. That warning wasn't concern. It was command. And the room felt it. Ellen swallowed hard. Tears welled. She looked at me like she was drowning. "Aunt," she whispered, "what did I sign?" My chest tightened. Because I knew. If her signature had been used. If they'd put her name on something. Then they hadn't just committed crimes. They'd built an escape route. And they had chosen her to carry it. I looked Halden straight in the eyes. "Doctor," I said quietly, "did you use Ellen Mara's signature to authorize anything?" Halden's smile was gone now. His voice was cold. "Director," he said, "be careful." I smiled back, but it wasn't sweet anymore. It was sharp. "Oh," I said softly. "I'm being extremely careful." Then I turned to the commissioner. "Pull the signed documents," I said. "Now." The commissioner nodded once. His security detail moved. Phones beeped. A tablet was produced. The air in the room thickened, heavy and choking. Ellen stared at the screen as it loaded. Her breath hitched. Her eyes widened. Then she let out a sound I will never forget. Not a scream. Not a sob. Something in between. The sound a person makes when the world breaks inside their chest. Because her name was there. Her signature. Stamped on an authorization form. Approving access. Approving clearance. Approving a trial modification. And right beneath it, in clinical black text. Mortality event adjustment. Authorized. Ellen shook her head violently. No, 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 she whispered, tears falling. I didn't do that. Halden stepped forward, voice smooth again. Ellen, he said softly, you're panicking. Let me explain. I stepped between them. No, I said. And for the first time all night, my voice rose. You don't get to explain your way out of using a young doctor's trust as a get-out-of-jail card. The room erupted in murmurs. Trustees whispering. Donors panicking. Security tightening. Victor Cade's face was rigid, eyes bright with fury. Rowan looked like he might vomit. Unia's hands shook. And Ellen. Ellen looked like she'd been stabbed. Not by a knife. By truth. Halden's gaze drilled into me. You're interfering, he said. I smiled darkly. Yes, I said. That's what oversight is. He leaned closer, voice low, meant only for me. You have no idea what you've started, he murmured. I leaned in too. Oh, I whispered back. I do. And then I saw it. The moment he decided. His eyes flicked toward the stage again. Toward that hidden vibrating phone. Toward whoever was behind it. And I realized. This wasn't his only plan. And if we weren't fast, this whole gala wasn't going to end with handcuffs. It was going to end with blood. The first light didn't flicker. It died. One chandelier, the largest one, the one donors liked to photograph, snapped off like someone had cut its oxygen. Then another. Then another. The room dropped into a dim, emergency glow that painted everyone in sickly gold and shadow. For half a second, nobody moved. Because wealthy people are used to control. And sudden darkness feels like betrayal. Then someone screamed. Not elegantly. Not socially acceptably. A full, primal scream. And the room exploded into motion. Chairs scraping. Glasses shattering. Voices rising in overlapping panic. Security shouted commands. Emergency lights hummed to life along the floor, turning the marble into a runway of red lines leading to sealed exits. I didn't panic. Because this was planned. And I knew exactly who had planned it. The commissioner moved instantly, voice sharp. Containment. Lock internal corridors. Security responded, but I could already see confusion ripple through them. Something wasn't working. Their comms lagged. Their responses staggered. Someone had interfered with the building's internal network. I turned toward the stage. That hidden phone? Still vibrating. Still active. And now, glowing faintly through the dark. Like a beacon. Or a trap. Ellen, I said quietly. She turned to me, face streaked with tears, eyes wide, but focused now, pure medical training mode. Yes, she whispered. I need you sharp, I said. No guilt. No shock. Just brain. She swallowed. Nodded. Good. The best doctors function inside disasters. And tonight, she was about to become one. Across the room, Victor Cade was shouting into a dead phone. Rowan was pacing like a trapped animal. Trustees clustered together like expensive penguins, whispering about liability and insurance. Unia stood frozen near the wall, tray abandoned, eyes darting between exits like she was calculating escape routes. And Halden. Halden was calm. Too calm. Standing in the half-light like a man watching a play he'd already memorized. Our eyes met. And he smiled. Not big. Not theatrical. Just enough to say, you're behind. My stomach went cold. Because men like Halden don't build one plan. They build layers. Then the emergency PA crackled. Static. Then a voice. Calm. Synthetic. Wrong. Building systems entering containment cycle. Not the building's normal voice. Not the normal system tone. Someone had overwritten it. People started shouting again. Open the doors. My car is outside. I have a heart condition. Do you know who I am? I almost laughed. Panic turns billionaires into toddlers. The commissioner grabbed my arm. Power grid interference, he said under his breath. External override. We didn't do this. I nodded. I know. Which meant someone else wanted this building sealed. Someone else wanted everyone trapped. And given the vibrating phone under the stage, someone wanted footage, leverage, blackmail, or insurance. Then the smell hit. Smoke. Not heavy. Not fire yet. But electrical. Burning wiring. I swore under my breath. Because panic plus darkness plus locked exits plus smoke equals stampede. And stampedes kill faster than bullets. Ellen, I said. Yes. Find the nearest medical supply station. She blinked once, brains switching tracks. For what? For when people start collapsing. She didn't argue. She moved. God, she was fast when she wasn't doubting herself. Unia grabbed my sleeve. Is this them? She whispered. Partly, I said. That was the honest answer. Because Holden wasn't panicking. But he wasn't controlling the room either. Which meant there was another player. And they were escalating. Then the stage lights flashed once. Twice. And the main projection screen came alive. Grainy video. Black and white. Security camera footage. Research wing corridor. 2 security staff. A gurney. A body under a sheet. The sheet slipped slightly. A pale hand fell free. Someone in the gala screamed. Someone else started sobbing. Victor Cade went white. Rowan said, "Oh my God," over and over like a broken alarm. Holden didn't move. Didn't react. And that terrified me more than anything. Because that meant he had expected exposure. Just not like this. Then text appeared over the video. This is what they hide. Murmurs turned into chaos. Phones came out, even though signals were dead, pure instinct. People started shouting names. Lawsuits. Threats. Prayers. The commissioner barked orders into his radio. Trace that feed. Now. Static answered him. Which meant whoever was doing this was good. Then a new video clip. Lab interior. Doctors moving fast. Someone coding on a table. Flatline tone. Then stillness. Then someone pulling paperwork over the camera lens. The room gasped collectively. Ellen reappeared at my side, breathing hard. I got med kit staged, she said automatically. Then she saw the screen. And froze. I grabbed her hand. Hard. Look at me, I said. She forced her eyes to mine. Right now, I said quietly, you are a doctor. Not a victim. Understood? Her jaw clenched. She nodded. Good. Because I needed her standing. Not breaking. Not yet. Then the emergency lights cut out completely. Total darkness. A wave of screams rolled through the room. Someone fell. Someone else yelled about broken glass. I heard a table overturn. Heard bodies colliding. Heard pure fear. Then backup lights slammed on. Cold blue. Sterile. Hospital-like. And in that light, Holden was gone. My heart slammed. Because if Holden was moving, something worse was about to happen. Ellen, I said. Yes. We're going after him. Her eyes widened. That's insane. Yes, I said. But he's not running randomly. He's going somewhere important. Unia stepped forward. I know the service corridors, she said. They made me run deliveries there. I looked at her. She looked terrified, but determined. Then you're with us, I said. She nodded. We pushed through the crowd. Security tried to stop us. The commissioner waved us through. 5 minutes, he said. Then I lock everything down. Good. 5 minutes was a lifetime. Or nothing. The service corridor was colder. Darker. Smelled like detergent and steel. Emergency strips lit the floor in red. Unia led fast. Left. Right. Down a ramp. My pulse was steady. My mind running possibilities. If Holden was running, he wasn't running to escape. He was running to finish something. Or erase something. Or kill someone. We turned a corner. And heard voices. Low. Urgent. Male. Not Holden. Different. You said this wouldn't happen, one voice hissed. I said I had backups, another replied. Then footsteps. Running. Away from us. Unia pointed. That leads to the data archive, she whispered. My stomach dropped. Of course. Data is worth more than bodies. Bodies are evidence. Data is power. Ellen, I said. Yes. If something goes wrong, you stay with Unia. No, she said instantly. I looked at her. Really looked. And saw something new. Steel. Not borrowed from me. Not borrowed from Halden. Her own. I am not staying behind again, she said quietly. I nodded once. Fair. We reached the archive door. It was open. Inside, server racks hummed like angry insects. And in the center of the room, Halden stood at a terminal. Calm. Focused. Uploading something. He looked over his shoulder. And smiled. I wondered how long you'd take, he said. My blood went ice cold. Because that wasn't a man surprised. That was a man timing us. You're destroying evidence, I said. No, he said calmly. I'm releasing it. The words hit like a punch. What? Ellen whispered. Halden looked at her. And, for a moment, something like regret flickered. Then it was gone. They were going to bury this, he said. All of it. Victor. The board. Everyone. Unia whispered, then why? Why are people dead? Halden's face hardened. Because progress is expensive, he said. I felt pure rage flood my chest. You don't get to say that, I said. He met my gaze. History says it for me, he replied. Then alarm screamed. Louder. Sharper. A new voice over the PA. Fire suppression system failure. Evacuate immediately. My heart slammed. Because if fire suppression was failing, someone had sabotaged safety systems too. This wasn't just exposure. This was escalation. Possibly mass casualty. Halden turned back to the terminal. 30 seconds, he said calmly. Then everything goes public. Ellen stared at him, voice breaking. You used me, she whispered. He didn't turn around. I protected you, he said. And that was the moment she broke. Not into tears. Into fury. And, somewhere deep in the building, something exploded. The explosion wasn't cinematic. It was worse. It was dull. Heavy. The kind of boom that travels through walls and bones instead of air. The server room lights flickered violently. Dust fell from ceiling vents. Somewhere far off, glass shattered in long, cascading waves. Unia screamed. Not from fear. From instinct. Gas line, she choked. Or backup generator. The emergency alarm shifted pitch, higher now, frantic, almost animal. I grabbed the edge of the terminal to steady myself as the floor vibrated. Halden didn't move. He just kept typing. Calm. Focused. Committed. And that was when I understood the final, terrible truth about him. He wasn't panicking because he'd already accepted casualties. He had decided the math was worth it. Ellen, I said sharply. She was staring at him like she was looking at a ghost. Ellen, I repeated. Her eyes snapped to me. Doctor mode, I said. Her jaw clenched. She nodded. Good. Because survival sometimes means you put your emotions in a locked box and sit on it. The terminal chimed. Upload, 82%. Halden exhaled slowly. Once this goes live, he said without turning, they can't bury it. The deaths. The falsified approvals. The donor interference. All of it. Unia's voice shook. You could have reported it legally. Halden laughed softly. Legally, he said. Do you have any idea how many people signed off on this? How many agencies look the other way when money says please? His fingers kept moving across the keyboard. Upload, 86%. You don't fix systems like this, he said. You detonate them. I stepped closer. And who pays for the blast radius? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Because he didn't need to. We all knew. The building shuddered again. Smoke started creeping under the archive door. Not thick. Not yet. But enough. Enough to say. Time is over. Ellen, I said. Yes. Where's the emergency override for this floor? She scanned the room, brain racing. South wall, she said. Manual suppression release. Go, I said. She ran. Unia followed her. Good. Because if fire suppression was down and smoke was rising, people upstairs were about to panic themselves into graves. Upload, 90%. Halden finally turned. He looked tired. Not scared. Not guilty. Just tired. Director, he said quietly, history will thank me. I stared at him. No, I said. History will footnote you. That one landed. I saw it in his eyes. Because brilliant men don't fear prison. They fear irrelevance. The smoke thickened. The alarm shifted to full evacuation mode. Somewhere, sprinklers coughed weakly, then died. Halden looked back at the screen. Upload, 94%. You can still walk out, I said. He smiled faintly. I walked in years ago, he said. Tonight is just the part where everyone notices. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Because I believed him. Ellen shouted from across the room. Override is stuck. Of course it was. Nothing this night was going to be simple. Upload, 97%. Halden's shoulders relaxed. Like a marathon runner seeing the finish line. I stepped forward. Stop it, I said. He shook his head once. No. I moved closer. Close enough to hit the keyboard. Close enough to shut it down. And he saw it. His hand hovered over a final key. Don't, he said quietly. Why? I asked. Because if you stop this, he said, voice suddenly fierce, they'd bury it forever. The room vibrated again. A deeper boom. Closer. Dust rained down. Unia screamed, ceilings cracking. Upload, 99%. Halden looked at me. And in that moment, I saw the ghost of the teacher he'd once been. The man who had probably saved lives. The man who had probably believed in medicine. And I hated him more for it. Because monsters who were once good make worse decisions. They think they're justified. Upload. 100%. The terminal chimed. Soft. Almost polite. And the world changed. Somewhere, across networks and satellites and hidden mirrors and backup servers, the data spread. Trial deaths. Edited records. Illegal authorizations. Donor pressure chains. Everything. Unstoppable. Public. Permanent. Halden closed his eyes. Exhaled. Done, he said. Not proud. Not relieved. Just finished. Then the ceiling tile above the far server rack collapsed. Flames licked through. Orange. Hungry. Real. Ellen. I shouted. Override's open, she yelled back. Somewhere deep in the walls, pipes screamed to life. Then water. Weak. Then stronger. Then full pressure. Sprinklers burst overhead. Steam and smoke and water filled the room. We have to move. Unia shouted. I grabbed Halden's sleeve. Come on. He didn't move. I'm not running, he said. You are not dying in a server room out of spite, I snapped. He looked at Ellen. Long. Quiet. I'm sorry, he said. And for the first time. He meant it. Ellen's face broke. Then move, she screamed. And something in her voice reached him. He staggered forward. We dragged him toward the door. Water poured around our feet. Smoke burned my lungs. The corridor outside was chaos. Security shouting. Staff crying. Evacuation lines forming. People soaked, coughing, terrified. But alive. Still alive. We pushed toward the main exit ramp. The commissioner met us halfway. You got him? He shouted. Yes. He grabbed Halden from us, security locking him in. Halden didn't resist. He just kept looking at Ellen. Like he was memorizing her. Or saying goodbye to the version of himself he'd lost. Outside, emergency crews swarmed. Ambulances. Fire units. Police drones. Media already arriving like vultures with Wi-Fi. People stumbled out soaked, shaking, alive. Ellen bent over, hands on her knees, sobbing silently. I pulled her into my arms. She shook. Not like a child. Like a soldier after battle. Unia stood beside us, soaked, eyes wide, alive. You saved them, she whispered. Ellen shook her head. No, she said hoarsely. We saved them. I squeezed her shoulder. Good. She'd survive this. Not unchanged. but stronger. Sirens painted the night red and blue. Behind us, smoke curled from the academy roof like a warning. The commissioner stepped beside me. "It's everywhere," he said quietly. "The data. Global." I nodded. "Good." Then he added, softer, "There's something else." I looked at him. "The video feeds," he said. "The ones that exposed everything first?" "Yes." "We traced them." My stomach tightened. "And?" He exhaled slowly. "They didn't come from Halden." Ice slid through my chest. "Then who?" I asked. He looked back at the building. At the chaos. At the flashing lights. "At someone who wanted the truth out," he said. "And wanted everyone else to think Halden forced it." I went very still. Because that meant someone else had orchestrated the night. Someone smarter. Quieter. More patient. Someone who had used Halden the way Halden had used Ellen. Across the emergency zone, I saw a woman standing alone near the media barricades. Simple code. Wet hair. Calm eyes. Watching the building burn. Watching the world change. She met my gaze. And smiled. Not friendly. Not cruel. Just knowing. Then she turned. And disappeared into the crowd. "Ellen," I said softly. She looked at me, eyes raw, voice small. "When did you know tonight was wrong?" I watched smoke coil into the night sky. "When powerful people are comfortable being cruel to invisible people," I said, "it means they think consequences aren't real." She nodded slowly. I squeezed her shoulder. "Consequences," I said quietly, "are the most patient hunters in the world." And somewhere out there, the real architect of the night was already planning the next move. Please click the subscribe button, like, share, and comment. This will encourage me to make more interesting stories. Also, let's know where you are watching from. Thank you, and see you in the next story.